Hello all, good afternoon, welcome and thank you for joining today's session. My name is Hugh Roberts and I work in Adobe's Customer Success Manager group, where we focus on helping you, our customers, get as much value as possible from your Adobe solutions. Today we are hosting the first part of the Adobe Analytics webinar series, Analytics Thursdays, and we will be looking at an introduction to Analysis Workspace. This live webinar is listen-only format, but is very much intended to be interactive. So please type your questions into the chat pod at the side of the screen at any time. The team will look to address as many questions as possible during or after the presentation, and we will follow up with you on any others we might not get to immediately. Just to note that this session is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be sent out to everyone who registered, along with a link to recordings of previous sessions in this series. We will also have a closing poll at the end to get feedback on the usefulness of this session, as well as any other suggestions you may have for future webinars. Our presenters today are Eric Matisoff, Analytics Evangelist at Adobe, and Mark Gray from the Solution Consulting Group at Adobe. And now, to get things started, let me hand you over to the first speaker, Eric Matisoff.
Great. Thank you, Hugh. Hello, everyone. As Hugh mentioned, my name is Eric Matisoff. I'm the evangelist for analytics and data science here at Adobe. What that means is I get the opportunity to work with customers just like yourself to get a feel for how you're using the products, as well as introduce you to recent innovations. My goal is really to make sure that you're armed with the latest and greatest information when it comes to Adobe Analytics, Analysis Workspace, and the entire Adobe Analytics Cloud. Today, I'll be walking through really just an intro to the Analysis Workspace toolset, but for those of you that have logged in, and maybe even for those that you consider yourselves professionals within the Workspace tool, don't worry, this will still be valuable for you, as I'll be dropping little nuggets of tips and tricks along the way to make your workflow within the tool even better. So let's actually jump in to the session here. So as I mentioned, we'll be going through an overview of Analysis Workspace. Some common analytics challenges that we've seen over the years are: how can you analyze larger and more complex data sets quickly and flexibly? And we felt that there's a need for customers to be able to better explore their data. Another question we get often is, how do you prevent business users from being overwhelmed by the data and the tool? And that's where we've introduced the ability to curate that data and share it out within your teams. And another question that we get very often is, how do you enable business users to self-serve answers to basic questions? And that's where we're looking to empower our customer base. So we'll be walking through a few examples of all of these within Analysis Workspace. So what is Analysis Workspace? It's a flexible project-based environment where analysts can use a set of analysis tools to find and share insights. Those insights can be customized to their unique questions in order to tell a powerful analytics story. So what does that all mean? Well, we've got a ton of tools that are built right into Analysis Workspace. In fact, this isn't even showing the entire breadth of the product, but I wanted to give you a feel for what we've been working on, what's available within the tool, and many of these I'll get to show today. So on the left here, you've really got the analysis tools. You've got freeform analysis and cohort tables. We've got future-facing tools like anomaly detection. In the middle, you've got a little bit more of a focus around empowering your users. So curation and shared projects, where you can tailor the experience based on the users or the groups of users that are actually accessing the different projects that you've created. And then on the right, we have our data science focused tools. And again, this is just a glimpse into them. It's not a complete list. But we've built things into the product like segment comparison, where you can very quickly identify differences between one segment and another, or anomaly detection, where we're proactively identifying and predicting where every metric you trend should be, and if it isn't there, how can you actually how can you be informed of that anomaly or spike or dip within your data? So I won't have the opportunity to walk through every single one of these today, but as we mentioned, we're going to be doing these every, I think it's every first Thursday within the month for the next several months for our Analytics Thursdays webinars. And so as we continue to expand, we'll touch upon all of these different features. So one particular item that we've recognized is that users must be able to find insights on their own. So we'll be walking through how the greenest user, from the marketer who is only logged into Adobe Analytics once, to the data scientist who is there every day and drilling into data and breaking it down and building intense and crazy segments, how both of those types of users will still be able to find insights on their own. Then we want to empower businesses to get answers to the unasked questions. And for those, we're actually leveraging, as I mentioned, predictive algorithms and machine learning to tell the business what they should care about and how they can learn more information about their data. So some key highlights that we'll be walking through today are the fact that Analysis Workspace has unlimited breakdowns and comparisons. It has an interactive drag and drop query functionality. It's very easy to interact with. It's also, we've built it as if it's an application. It just happens to sit in your browser, but everywhere within the tool you have the ability to right-click. There's shortcut keys. There's all sorts of great ways that it's more than just simply a static report sitting in your browser that every time you click it has to refresh or just isn't nearly as flexible as you like. And that was really the goal there. And finally, another really important piece is the fact that you've got lots of diverse layout options. And I'll be walking through some of those capabilities today as well. Some other key highlights include interactive visualizations, and as I mentioned, the ability to curate content so that when you share it, there's some guardrails built around the projects that you've created. We've also got the ability to share, and as a project manager, you can organize these analyses using tags and approvals. So all in all, we've got a bunch of different benefits that are tied to Analysis Workspace. First of all, it's the right tool for the job. It's built for speed. It runs fast, and it gets you the data you need. It's also advanced analysis, and it happens on the web. It's not happening in a different application that you have to load up or anything like that. It's right in your browser. And finally, as mentioned a few times, we have the ability to curate and share the insights. Now, a big focus of Analysis Workspace is the ability to democratize your data. So what that means is we want to make data that was only available to some people more widely available to everyone. Previously, it was just the digital analyst. Now, using Analysis Workspace, you'll have the ability to expand on that. Let me give you an example. So the current scenario without Analysis Workspace would be that the business users on the right ask questions of the analysts do their analysis, dig into the data, find the answer, and then provide reports back to the business users. Well, we want to change that. And our goal is after that question is requested from the business user, the analysts then perform their analysis, and instead of simply providing reports, they curate Analysis Workspace and share projects back to those business users. Those business users then can go back to the shared projects rather than back to the analyst if they have additional questions and needs. So with that, I'd like to jump into the tool because that's what gets me really excited about working within the Adobe Analytics team. So as I share my screen, I'm going to start, like I mentioned, really simply within the Analysis Workspace tool. And before I even get into the tool, I'm going to look at the report that probably everyone on this call has looked at before. The very simple and very boring Pages report. Here, I've got just some very basic data involved. I'm looking at all of May, which comprises all of, what are we talking about, 4 days here. Happy Star Wars Day for those of you. May the 4th be with you. And I've got 4 different metrics pulled into my report. I've got page views, revenue, visits, and orders. If I wanted to add an additional metric, just like you're familiar with, I can click on metrics, click on unique visitors, click apply. The page then refreshes after a few seconds, and then that report is represented back to me. Now, what we wanted to do was kind of change the way that works. And to make the migration to Analysis Workspace even easier for you, we've built in this Try in Workspace button. If you haven't clicked it before, I highly recommend clicking it. It's a great way to start migrating from Reports and Analytics, which is the interface I'm currently in, over to Analysis Workspace. And so that Try in Workspace is going to be in just about every report within the tool, although there are a few where you won't see it. So let's actually go ahead and click it. So when I click Try in Workspace, it's going to look at my date, it's going to look at my dimension, it's going to look at my metrics, it's going to look at how my graph was defined, and it's just simply going to represent all of those different items right here within Analysis Workspace. And just like that, I've joined our latest and greatest tool that I mentioned earlier. So what can you do within Analysis Workspace? Well, let me first walk you through just a little bit of an overview of what we're looking at. First of all, you'll see that we've got the graph here at the top that we're looking at in Reports and Analytics aligned with the table below. And it's actually fully interactive and integrated together so that this bar chart, as I highlight different items from search results to shopping cart, take a look at the graph and how it actually highlights what I'm hovering over. It's a really simple way just to keep an eye on where you're actually interacting with the tool. Another little secret tip that I like to leverage is the fact, look at this, revenue and orders. Both of them have zeros for the top 5 items. And that's because, not surprisingly, they're tied to the order confirmation page. So I've got some options. First of all, I can simply remove them from my table, and removing them from the table, since this graph is linked, would also remove them from the graph. In addition, if I wanted to keep them in the table but remove them from the graph, I can actually click these different metrics in order to hide them. Now you're not seeing much change there because there actually isn't much data, but if I were to remove visits, for example, now you can see we're brought down just to the green for page views and the orange for unique visitors. And there we go, now I'm focused just on page views. Page views, visits, and visitors. You can see how easy it is to interact with the graph. In addition, you've got lots of different options when you click on the gear here for visualization settings. You can change it from a horizontal bar to a wealth of other visualization types within the tool. And as you make those changes, so maybe I switch to a bar chart, it's going to continue to be linked directly with the items below. So if I were to apply a filter to this table here, so maybe I apply this filter here just simply by hovering over the dimension, and I can filter just by the word cart. When I do that, instead of a page refresh, it's an almost instantaneous update of data. And now I'm limited just to these 4 items that are tied to the shopping cart. You can see cart details, shipping information, billing information, and order review. But now I don't really like my, my visualization anymore, so I can switch on back to my horizontal bar. And I've got just what I need. So what other fun things are built into the tool? First of all, in addition to filtering here, you can also do an advanced filter where you can say all criteria, any criteria. You can say add to cart, or it contains or does not contain. So maybe we say it does contain cart, but it doesn't contain order. And now we'll remove this 4th item. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it would just simply be by highlighting. And this is where we've got a little bit of that application feel into the tool, where you can highlight more than one cell by using Command or Control, depending on whether you're on a Mac or a PC. You can also click and shift-click as well in order to highlight a bunch of different rows at the same time. I'm going to remove these different filters so you can get a feel for what I'm talking about. When I hover over these top 5, now I can see that I've got the different items that I care about. when I right-click, which is my favorite thing to do in Analysis Workspace, I highly recommend everywhere you are within the tool that you always right-click. There's tons of information and tons of capabilities that we've built into the right-click contextual aware functionality within Analysis Workspace. So just since I've right-clicked here, I've got lots of different options. I can choose to break down, visualize, create an alert, download, trends, create a segment, run a segment comparison, or very simply display only those selected rows. And to my example earlier, if I wanted to remove home and have gear and just focus on those 5 items, I can right-click, display only those selected items, and now I've got just what I need in both my table and my graph above. So let's dig a little higher. So we've been messing around with this table, messing around with this graph. What else is built into the tool? So in the top left, we simply can give a name to our project. And you'll notice we're not really looking to create just simply one-off reports within Analysis Workspace. They're called projects for a reason. They're called workspaces for a reason. And that's because you can put more than just a single report in each so that you can continue your analysis. So maybe we're going to call this our page analysis project. And when I do that, it's just simply a friendly name aligned with my workspace, and I can go to Project and hit Save. You'll notice that, first of all, these menu items are going to, once again, look very similar to any other application that you've used. When you hit Project and Save, you'll also see that we've built in a plethora of keyboard shortcuts that are all there to make life a little easier for you. You can simply hit Save. It'll give you the ability to add a description, and I can maybe say, May the 4th is the best Star Wars day of the year, and Save Project. Now I've got everything I need in order to open this project a little later, and it'll be saved, remembering the date, remembering my report suite, and remembering the pages that I have selected as well. As I make a change, if I were to, for example, maybe remove that filter where I can right-click once again and just simply go to Display All Rows, now I can notice, first of all, that there are unsaved changes, and just simply with the Command S, I'm going to be able to resave my page with this update. Just a simple way to save some time. In addition, admins within your company will have the ability to set this as, actually, anyone can set this as a landing page, but admins will have the ability to save a project and control the landing pages of others within the organization. So if I wanted to set this as my landing page, every time I come back to Workspace, it would be the default project that I see. I can also refresh the project if necessary, download as a CSV or PDF, lots of great ways to interact with the tool. Now the next menu that I want to dig into is really one of the biggest time savers. And this is the ability to do an undo, and just recently deployed is the ability to do a redo. And so if I'm here and I realize, you know what, I didn't want to display all rows, I can hit Command Z or Control Z on Windows in order to go back a step. Or I can hit Shift and go forward a step. Same thing as going to Edit, Undo, and Redo. Clear All is going to bring me back to a blank canvas, which we'll get into shortly. As I move over to the next item, we can see Insert, where we can add new panels, freeform tables, segment comparisons, visualizations, etc. Then we have new components that we can create as well, new segments, new metrics, new date ranges, new alerts. If I create a component elsewhere, maybe within Reports and Analytics, I create a new segment, and I need that to reappear here within Analysis Workspace, this component, Refresh Components, will allow me to do that. And that's actually a really nice use case. It's much better than just simply hitting refresh. So if I were, for example, in Segments in a different tab, or another user were to create a segment for me that I wanted to, and shared it to me, as soon as I hit Component and refresh, that'll then become available within my segment list. I mentioned this earlier, the ability to share. Sharing projects and curating them is extremely important when it comes to using the tool and democratizing data within your organization. We'll get into some examples of that a little later. Then finally, I can't recommend enough the Help section. We've really expanded the knowledge base within Adobe Analytics, as well as added a ton of different videos that help walk you just 2 or 5 minutes through any different feature that you're looking for. If you haven't been there before, I also highly recommend checking out our YouTube channel, which focuses specifically on Adobe Analytics. As I move from left to right, then we've got simply our report suite dropdown. From here, you can see all the different report suites that your username has access to. When you make a switch from one report suite to another, maybe to this other report suite, you'll see the page doesn't refresh. The data just simply refreshes for you. It's a really easy way just to switch back and forth. Going down from there, you'll see that each panel within Analysis Workspace has date selectors. So right now I'm looking just at May, but if I were to click that, I could very easily focus maybe just on May 1st. Or I could look at all of April, the 1st to the 30th. We've also built in some presets as well that will look like very similar to those that you're used to within Reports and Analytics. Last 30 days, last 90 days, this week, last full week, etc. You can also do a quick search in order to find the one that you're looking for. So we could say this year, hit apply, and now we've got data for all of 2017, of course up to today. Lots of quick ways to interact with your data. I highly recommend whenever you see the ability to do a search, it's a great time saver. Then on the left, we've got our panel. This panel is going to be interactive based on which of these 3 buttons you actually have selected. By default, we'll have components where you can see dimensions, you can see metrics, segments, and time. Keep in mind that what we're pulling up here initially are the top 5 used dimensions, metrics, segments, and time date ranges for you automatically. But when you click on dimensions, we're instead sorting them alphabetically. Same thing when you click on metrics or segments, etc. Now there's a few things I want to call out. First of all, you'll notice as I hover over these different dimensional items, there's an info button. That info button gives you a wealth of useful information. First of all, it's going to tell you, is there any data associated with this dimension? And what are the top 5 items over the last 90 days associated with that dimension? It's a very easy way to confirm, is there or isn't there data for this dimension, metric, or segment before actually pulling it into the tool. The next item, and by the way, that'll exist not only within dimensions, but metrics as well. Metrics instead will just simply show you a trend of that data over time. Now, the next thing I want to show you is this icon just to the right of this info button. And that's this arrow. Now, a lot of times customers will come to me and ask, how can I focus just on a specific page? And that's where this comes into play. One way, of course, would be to drag in page and then apply a filter, find the one you're looking for, right-click, display only that one. An easier way to do it is just simply to drill into page or whatever dimension you care about, and you can even do a search for it here. So maybe we want to focus on cart. And we can drag in cart details, and now, just like that, we've got the data we need. We can add maybe these other 2 as well, drop them into page, and I've got just the 3 pages that I'm looking for. It's a great way just to find the data that you need. In addition, from these dimensions, you'll notice I've started dragging and dropping, and that's the way that we've built the tool to work within Analysis Workspace. Is we don't want you to have to learn SQL. We don't want you to have to know exactly what button to click. We've tried to make it really simple in terms of dragging and dropping. So if I were to highlight these 3 pages, I could very easily drag in a different dimension in order to drill down on all 3. So if I take refer type, for example, and I drag that on over on top of those 3 highlighted cells, it's actually going to break down all 3 of them at the same time. That's a huge time saver. It's much easier than just simply saying, okay, I want to break down this first item, cart details. Oh, sorry. I want to break down cart details, and then I want to break down shipping information, and then I want to break down order review. Instead, it's all done at the same time, just because I shift and highlight it. So a quick way to get to all the data you need. What else do we have within the tool? So some other fun things. I already talked about how metrics when you click the info button, you can see it trended over time. You also, with segments, will see something similar. So when you click the info button for segments, it's going to show you two really powerful things. First of all, it's going to show you the dimension and the definition for that segment, actually. So it's a hit-based segment that says the mobile device type equals other, and therefore it's desktop. That's the first piece. The second piece is all around focusing on whether there's actually any data associated within that segment. Keep in mind that data is actually aligned with your report suite. So if I were to switch from one report suite to another, this bullseye showing you the number of unique visitors, visits, and page views that are associated with this particular segment will change. And once again, that's showing you the last 90 days associated with each of those different items for that segment. Great way to get some quick access to understanding your segments. Now, when I drag and drop any of these items, you'll see some proactive highlighting built into the tool. And the whole goal of that is to make it easier for you to know, well, where can I drop this dimension that I have? I've grabbed a referrer type. I can replace the dimension that I'm currently looking at. I can insert it next to or above or below any of these dimensions as well. So let's actually do that. So just to make things simpler, I'm going to decrease the amount of metrics to just one. So I've got page views broken out across my 3 pages that I care about, and I'm curious about referrer type. Now, we looked earlier at the ability to highlight all 3 and then drag and drop into those, which I'm having trouble doing right now, as you can tell. And when I drag in referrer type onto all 3, then it breaks down each of them by referrer type. But I'll also have the ability to drag and drop that referrer type near page views. And when I pull it underneath, it's actually pulling in all 4 of the different referrer types and breaking out page views by them as well. So I can see side by side. Here's typed bookmarks for that cart details page versus other websites, search engines, and social networks. It's a quick way to basically do the same thing as drilling in here, taking and dragging this one under page views, and then other websites and dragging that under page views, then pulling in search engines and dragging that next. Instead, it's just nice and easy. We're going to say, we don't need to manually do that. We want to see all referrer types broken out by page views. Super, super simple. Now, in addition to dragging in dimensions that way, when I pull in a metric, I'm going to see the same thing, that proactive highlighting. And then finally, I can do the same thing with segments. If I need to apply a segment and see how desktop page views all up is aligned with each of these other items, I can see that right here. In addition, I can also grab those segments and pull them underneath any of these highlighted or filtered page views as well. So now I'm looking at desktop direct visits of page views for each of these different pages. Really, really easy. Now, what if I wanted to apply that to all 4 of these? Of course, I could drag and drop one by one by one by one, but that is a waste of my time. Instead, I can just apply it above, and now that segment is applied to my metric, and then that metric is broken out by my 4 filters. Super, super simple way to see all your data. If I wanted to get really crazy, then I could drag in an additional metric here, or an additional segment that breaks it down in another way. So maybe we want to see simply the country of Canada, and now I've got my filter applied. Of course, this website doesn't get a lot of traffic from Canada. Moving right along, I'd also like to do a little bit of digging into segments and where else I can drop them. So I can also just simply replace my dimensions with segments as well. So I can compare device type desktop there to mobile phone and just get actually segments as dimensions within the tool. Super, super simple way to see that data. Okay, I think we've messed around with that table enough. Let's take a look at some of the other visualization capabilities that we have. So we've been digging into this components panel the entire time. Of course, As I mentioned earlier, we have the ability to search. So if we were looking for page, or we were looking for visit number, just simply typing and you can access that data. You also have filters to filter to approved metrics and dimensions and segments that your admins have defined as approved, favorites that you've personally favorited, or just filter to dimensions, metrics, segments, or time, as well as any other tags that you've applied to those items. But above components, we have visualizations. And we could probably spend the entire hour just drilling into not even half of all of these visualizations. We have so many. Freeform table is what we've been looking at over here. We also have cohort tables to better understand retention within your website or app. We have fallout, which is similar to pathing-focused items for fallout and flow. We have area and area stacked, bar, etc. Here's one that we've just been looking at over here, which is horizontal bar. All of those different items are built right into the tool and made available to you. Now check this out. If I've got my bar chart the way that I want to, and I don't want my users to be confused by the data that they're below, we just want the visualization to have it broken out across types bookmarked, other websites, search engines, and social networks for desktop versus mobile, I can actually click this green button here that says Manage My Data Source. And I've got some nice options. The first one that I want to call out, really the only one that I care about for this session, is the ability to hide my data source. And when I do that, you'll see that the freeform table actually goes away. And that's really, really useful because now I'm just giving my users the curated view just for that they require. If I needed to adjust that, I of course can go on back to Show Data Source, and I can adjust it as necessary. Maybe remove types bookmarked, so it's just these three, and hide it again. Then finally, the last piece of panels that I want to walk you through are what we call our panels section, where we can pull in a blank panel, a freeform panel, or a segment comparison. So the first one, blank panel, is really going to look a lot like this freeform table, but it's going to have no content in it whatsoever. This is the most blank canvas you can get within Analysis Workspace. From here, you can choose any type of visualization to drag and drop into the tool, or you can simply click Add a Freeform Table to start with a blank table within your blank canvas. It's exactly the same as just simply dragging over a freeform table as well. Now, a lot of times I find myself having to kind of start from this place here where I've already done my curation, I've got it looking the way I want to, but I actually want to duplicate that canvas. And rather than start from scratch where I'm pulling in my different referrer types and my segments and my metrics as necessary, I can actually just simply hit duplicate. And I'll do that for a couple of reasons. First of all, when I right-click, remember, always right-click in Workspace, I can go ahead and duplicate my panel. When I do that, now it's just going to simply be the exact same view that I had already created, and I can even adjust it. This is where we get into the adjustable visualization capabilities of Analysis Workspace, where I've got a side-by-side view of these two particular bar charts. And maybe here I want to focus in on April, and on the right I've got May. And now I can get a feel for, has my data changed over time? Really, really simple. That's one way to do it. Another way to do that same goal would be to take a look at my freeform. Actually, we've already been duplicating, so let's duplicate this, and then let's tweak it. So from here, we're actually going to expand it a little bit wider. I'm going to show my data source, and for this, I don't even care about my horizontal bar chart. For this, I actually want to right-click, and I just simply want to do a time period comparison, where I can add the ability to look at the previous month for this particular metric. Now, if I were to remove these different items, now I can see side by side. I'm looking at April here, and over here, I'm looking at March. Really, really easy way to interact with your data. Once again, we're going back to that ability to right-click. Now, if I need to do a time comparison, that's where we get into some fun. So I can see not only am I looking at page views for the current month, page views for the previous month, but I can automatically see the percent change between those two metrics. And you'll see all of that was done just simply with a couple of right clicks. Now there's one other item I really want to walk you through. And first of all, I'm going to go ahead and hit save so I can open this later. And I want to actually go ahead and hit project and open. And when you hit project open, you're going to see a list of all the different projects that you have available to you. These will include projects that you've created and saved, just like the one that I've been creating all day, as well as any others that I created before or have been shared to me from other folks within your organization. Now from here you can choose to create new projects, use some tutorials, manage your projects, or dig into these templates that we've created just to help give you a starting place. So rather than starting within a blank panel or starting within reports and analytics, maybe you're starting with a question. And those questions can be, which content is being consumed most and is engaging my users on my site? If that's your question, you can just simply click this template in order to get a starter project to help you along your way for analysis. You can also dig into app-focused, and these are mobile app-focused templates. So for those of you that are using the Adobe Analytics mobile SDK in order to track your data, these app-focused reports and projects are going to be extremely helpful for you for getting to your data quickly. We also have broken them out for retail, so campaign performance focus or product focus. And just simply maybe your more standard web-based items, acquisition, content consumption, retention, and technology. And then finally, we've just released a people metrics focused template, which is tied directly to those customers that are in our device co-op, which is currently in North America, but expanding soon beyond those borders. So let's dig into one of them. Let's take a look at acquisition here. So when I choose that template, it's going to say, do you want to save? I don't really care. Let's replace it. And you can see a wealth of different visualizations that have been pre-built for you as a user. These include a list of your top referring domains in a nice friendly donut chart. You've got your top landing pages as well. You can dig in a little further to see your visits trended over time. And this is going to break out those visits in total, as well as visits that have a tracking code in blue, and visits that just simply have a referrer in red. Now, as I'm doing that hovering, you're going to start to see some shading around those areas. And that is our proactive anomaly detection that we run on every single metric that you trend within Analysis Workspace. And it's just simply running that metric through 28 different predictive algorithms to help you identify, is this data an anomaly or is it just simply a standard spike? And that can be both a spike or a dip within your data. And we want to give you that information proactively every time you trend something within Analysis Workspace. Moving right along, we also have the ability to take a look at your top search engines and your top search keywords as well. Now, as I'm hovering over these items, you'll notice there's an icon that allows me to visualize. So let's say I'm focused in here on Microsoft Bing, and I want to focus, have my visits, unique visitors, and bounce rate been trending in one way or another over time. I can click that visualize button, and automatically I can see my data right above it. It just takes one click. It's the same as right-clicking and going to trend selection. It's exactly the same. Once again, it's actually linked to whatever I've clicked within the table. So if I select a different search engine, that's going to be aligned with my selection. So here I can see Microsoft Bing. I can look at, well, bounce rate, of course, doesn't really align within my graph, so maybe I remove that to keep it adjusted. And once again, I've got my proactive anomaly detection to see that data. And it looks like on the 18th, there was a particular anomaly where our prediction was much higher than where we expected it to be. I can remove that trend and keep on digging into my my template. From here, one other thing that you'll notice is that these are fully interactive workspaces. So any other dimension that I want to drill into, page for example, it's completely accessible to me. I don't have to worry about it being a static dashboard. Instead, it's an interactive workspace. Hey guys, if we can mute all lines, that would be great. From here, we can continue on moving, where I've got my top referring domains and my top landing pages. I can see them sorted simply by each of these different metrics highlighted. Now, sorting is something that's particularly important. I can actually dig in, and as I hover over each metric, you'll see that there's an arrow that highlights and gives me the ability to resort based on the metric that I've clicked the arrow for. Really easy way to interact with your data. Moving right along, we have detailed refers, top tracking codes, as well as the number of days between visits. Super high-level view within your data. Now, what's at the top here is the ability to apply a segment. Maybe I only care about mobile phone specific items. When I drag and drop that segment into my panel, now every single component and every single visualization has been adjusted and filtered to only that segment, where mobile device type equals mobile phone. Really easy way to just quickly get at your data. Now, in addition to dropping in that segment, you also, of course, have the ability to stack segments. So maybe we want to focus in, we can make sure there's data, it doesn't look like there actually is, so we don't want to use that one. But we could also create a new segment. And when I do that, check this out. I can actually just simply right-click anywhere within the tool. How many times have I said the right-click on this call? You can go ahead and create a segment from that selection as well. So we've already talked about trending, but this is a really simple way to create segments, even from users that don't know how to create segments, where I can just simply say the search engine equals Yahoo automatically. Now I've got my Yahoo search engine visits. I'll switch from hit to visit and hit save. It's the top segment for me to apply. I can now apply that additional segment to my workspace, and I've got an even further filtered view of my data. Of course, my top referring domains are just Yahoo, but I can see all my different landing pages. My search engines are filtered, but my keywords are focused just on Yahoo. Really, really easy way to interact with your data in a super fast way as well. So from here, maybe we've got our workspace looking just the way we need to. So I'm going to go ahead and save. And when I do that, I'm going to give it a friendly name of Yahoo Focused Mobile Visit. And I can maybe ask the question of dig into Yahoo search engine visits from phones. Learn more here. Save my project. And the next item I want to walk through is the ability to share. So sharing is something that is a huge feature within Analysis Workspace. I've talked about it at length. First of all, when you click Share Project, you've got a number of different options. You can apply tags to that project, give it a name and description like we already have, and find all your recipients. Now these recipients are actually aligned directly with user management for your Adobe Analytics company. So any users that have access to Adobe Analytics will also have access here within the ability to share to them. Also, if you're taking advantage of user management groups, which is a great way to identify different sets of users, a lot of times we'll see users that are organized by department within their company. So you can see marketers, you can see IT, or you can see operations, etc. Just simply one click to those groups, and then all of those users will now get access to that project. When I hit share, as an admin, I can also set that as their landing page. So the next time they log into Workspace, this will be the view that they have. Now rather than hit share, I actually want to curate my project first. And this is because for this particular project, I don't want users to have the ability to drill into Dimension and see dozens and dozens and maybe even hundreds of dimensions that maybe will cause more confusion than actual ability to interact with the tool. Same thing with metrics. There's tons and tons of metrics here. And I don't want to confuse my maybe less familiar with Adobe Analytics users. And I can do that by taking advantage of the ability to curate my data. When I curate, it's automatically going to pull in any dimensions that are already within the visualizations and components within the report. Same thing with metrics and segments. You'll see I've already got mobile phone since that's a segment that's been applied. Same thing as Yahoo search engine visits. Both of those are going to already be a part of my curation. Same thing with visits with a tracking code and a referrer. As we're looking at here within those graphs, they're automatically applied within the tool. If I needed to, maybe I had an additional dimension that I wanted to drag in. I want my users to also be able to break down by page as well as product. And now I've got those additional items that have been pulled into my curated components. When I hit done, I'll get a view of what the users that I shared this curated project to will look like. Instead of having all those different dimensions, when they click dimensions, they'll only see these items at the top here. They won't see these non-curated components below. Similarly, within metrics, I'm limited to just the metrics that I specified, and segments as well, just these top 4. Then I can go ahead and hit share. I want to share my project, and this is where I finally get to a place that I can say we want to focus on traffic and share that over to Charles within my team. Now the next time Charles opens this workspace, it's going to have a view that looks just like this within the tool. I've got about 10 minutes left, and I can actually dig a little bit further into the tool, or I can get a feel for the number of Q&A questions that we have coming in. Abhinav or Hugh or Mark, would you guys be able to give me a feel whether it makes more sense to switch on over and answer some questions or continue with some other tips and tricks within the tool?
We've got a couple of questions, so we might have time to do a bit of both. Eric, one question that popped up was about templates and whether users will get the option at some point to be able to define their own custom template for starter projects.
Yeah, that's a really great question, and it's something that we've seen requested quite a bit within the community. It's definitely a focus of ours and has been added to our roadmap that we want the ability for customers to be able to expand on the list of templates here. Right now, the limitation is really focused on, instead of creating templates, we'd really love to see customers tweaking them, adjusting them, creating new versions, and then sharing them using the share pod that we were looking at earlier. But don't worry, we are listening when you're making these types of requests, and we're looking at the best way in order to have customers, admins, or users, or power users create their own templates within their company.
Great stuff. Another question that popped up, sorry, might put you on the spot, but hopefully we can get them covered off. One question was in relation to sort of understanding the flow of navigation from page to page, and it's great that we've got visualization perfectly for that. But in some instances, the page names are a little bit too long to really benefit from that visualization. Is there any option to be able to understand next pages from within a data table? Any plans to bring that as an enhancement?
Great question. So let me step back a little bit and actually show what this question is about. So one way to access it would just simply by clicking on over to a template that I happen to know has some flow and pathing reports within it. So when I click that content consumption report, you can see I've got a bunch of different items here that are saying, starting on the entry page, what are the different entry pages that users are accessing? So not surprisingly, the number one entry page is home. When I click home, I'm then taken to the next page within that flow, where I can see from the home page, these are the top items and places that users are going. I can then get to search results, etc. And I can get a feel for the percentage of users going from home through to search results to each of these different items. Now, there's some advanced functionality built into pathing already today. Of course, you know me, I'm always going to recommend, first thing first, always right-click. So right-clicking gives you the ability to focus on this node, just simply start over. Or one thing that I truly love is the ability to create a segment for that path. And just simply clicking on Create Segment, we're pre-building a segment that says the page exists where the entry page is home. Then the user goes to search results within one page view, and then gets to search results again within another page view. And all of that is pre-built out for you. You'll also, when you're right-clicking, get the ability to trend. And now you can see this very kind of random, and you can probably hear from the sound of my voice that this is very random, where we're saying entered, went to the home page, search results, didn't get results, and then to the page gear. And we're able to trend that over time. Within a few seconds, we're getting anomalies based on where we predicted that data to be. Now, the question, of course, is how can, for users and customers that have really long page names, you can actually get a feel for it just to the left of my mouse here, where the third item down within this third column is search ... results. Right now, when I hover over it, I can at least get a better feel for that full page name. So I can see, okay, when I hover over it, I can see page search results, no results. So that's one way that we're giving customers the ability to see, for these longer page names, what's actually being included. So, for example, the one right above what I have highlighted starts with edito and then goes to he cold. That doesn't mean anything to me. But when I highlight over it, now I can see entry page, editorial page, beat the cold. So I can get a better feel for what I'm actually looking at. Now the question, to be a little bit more specific, was now that I have one, I have two, I have three different items within my flow, all of which have that ... in them, and I can't quite see the differences between them without hovering over each one, hovering over this one, then this one, then this one. And it's certainly something that we recognize within the tool. There's an opportunity to improve it. So I don't have a better explanation for how to access that data today and view it other than simply hovering over it. I also happen to like the ability to right-click and, of course, trend it. Now, when you do trend that, you are going to also get a data source where you can see even more granularly how that is trending over time. And you can see, once again, all the details for how that actual segment was created. But that, once again, isn't fully answering what's the best way to do this. So today, we have the ability for those 3 or 4 different options. And we've got a few different ideas on the table internally on the product side to make it even easier for our customers that have really long page names to better access their data. So it is something that we're working on, and we'll continue to work on to make the best experience for our customers. Mark, if there aren't any other questions, yeah, or actually are there?
Eric, I was just going to jump in with one more question actually, and a lot of things people are asking on the chat pod. I'm re-emphasizing that we've got our YouTube channel, which has now got 100 videos that demonstrate lots of different features and capabilities. So I encourage people to go and have a look at that. But one question that we did get was around, quite a good question actually, around do we have any plans to incorporate multiple report suites within a single workspace project? Is that something that we're considering at the moment?
Yep, it's funny. All 3 of these questions are focused on really some of the top 3 requests that we get within Analysis Workspace. In fact, if I could guess what the 4th one is, I would say it has to do with the number of rows within a freeform table. But all 4 of those are items that we're actively working on and are vigorously and rigorously trying to get shared out to our customers quickly. The question just to reiterate, was how can we pull more than one report suite into a single Analysis Workspace project? Right now, we're actually limited. You'll see that report suite is all the way at the top here within Analysis Workspace. So if I were to close my panel or even drag in an additional panel, both of those are aligned with the same report suite. I can, of course, adjust the dates as we were looking at earlier, but right now we are limited with just one report suite per workspace. Now there's a few different things that we can suggest in the meantime. First of all, I highly recommend taking advantage of virtual report suites in order to empower users to have a different view of their data based on segments that you create. If you're not familiar with them, once again, as you mentioned, there's a really great video focused on virtual report suites here within the Adobe Analytics YouTube channel. That's one way to learn about them. And if you're doing that, something that you can actually do is you'd be able to take those same segments that you're using to define those virtual report suites and apply those, if I were to right-click, apply those to two side-by-side workspaces. So for example, I would be able to create apply one segment here and another segment here, and that's our best way to handle the request for multiple report suites today. But again, it's something that we're actively working on, and we hear it loud and clear from our customers that the ability to pull even more than one report suite into a workspace is something that we care about. Great. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and thank everyone for joining and hand it back to, I believe, over to Hugh.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Mark. And thanks again to all of you for taking the time to join the session today. As mentioned earlier, a link to the live recording will be sent out to everyone who's registered. We very much hope to have your company again on future Adobe Analytics webinars. The next one is going to be on the 1st of June. If any further details are needed, or if you have any questions relating to your Adobe solution, please reach out to your Adobe Customer Success Manager. And finally, if you can take a moment to complete the poll that hopefully is now displaying on your screens, that would be very much appreciated. Thanks again and have a great day.